So thank you everyone for joining us and welcome. I am Cindy Erickson, tour coordinator with Westworld Tours, and joining me this evening to tell you all about the incredible sights and attractions you'll see on our Victoria in the Spring and Fall tour is Debbie McRae. Debbie is one of our tour coordinators who loves our Victoria tour. Hi, Debbie. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Debbie and I were chatting previous to the start of the presentation and going over how beautiful it is to see all that color. It's January. We've been experiencing such brutal weather, and to see all those blossoms, and I think we're all ready for some spring. So Debbie, we will get you to talk shortly here. I just have a few things that I would like to go over with everybody before we get started on the presentation itself. First up is questions. We enjoy hearing your questions. We look forward to receiving your questions. So we do encourage you to ask questions at any time throughout the presentation. You simply can type them into the Q&A box located on your screen, and we will ensure that we get to them at the end of the presentation, but don't wait for the end. If you think of something, just put it in there and we will make sure we get to it at the conclusion of the presentation. And if you've joined us on Facebook, just type your questions into the comment box there, and we will ensure that we get to see those too. So future presentations. This is our first of our 2024 presentation series. And we've got a little lineup here of our future presentations of what's coming ahead. So next Wednesday, January 24th at 7 o'clock p.m., we have our Atlantic Canada tour, which will feature our Newfoundland and Maritimes fly tours, which combined will cover all provinces in Atlantic Canada. And then on January 31st, Wednesday, 7 o'clock p.m., Central Standard Time, I should mention, we will be doing a presentation on our Black Hills tour, which is a great little tour full of action and lots of fun and attractions and great sights to see. And then our new tour, which is taking us to Thailand, we'll be presenting that one February 7th at 7 o'clock p.m. And following that, we will be doing a presentation on Hawaii. And that is actually going to be February 15th, not the 14th. We're going to move from a Wednesday to a Thursday night for our Hawaii presentation. And again, it will be 7 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time. And this is a quick little preview here of our upcoming presentation next week. As you can see, you can check out Canada's easternmost province of Newfoundland and Labrador, whale watching, cruise through the seabird capital of North America. You can explore North America's only authentic Viking settlement, spend some time in Nova Scotia, exploring the iconic lighthouse at Peggy's Cove, the scenic Cabot Trail, many national historic sites. We'll head over to PEI, home to vibrant Charlottetown, and of course the famous farmhouse of Anne of Green Gables. Get to drive across the Confederation Bridge into New Brunswick, view Hopewell Rocks, where we have the highest tides in the world twice a day, jam-packed full of action. And as you can see, that is pardon me, I just lost my slide. We have a total of 23 days on that tour, covering, of course, just the Maritimes and the Atlantic Canada region, and it does include 29 meals. So stay tuned and tune in next week for that, and you'll get some more in-depth details on that particular tour. So a little about Westworld Tours. As Western Canada's premier tour company, Westworld Tours has been serving Canadians from coast to coast and across throughout North America since the year 2000. And in 2025, which isn't too far away, we will be celebrating our 25th anniversary. We present quality components, including modern, comfortable coaches, professional tour directors like Miss Debbie that's joining us this evening, experienced, courteous drivers, baggage handling, excellent accommodations. We take in all the important sites and attractions and include several meals throughout. Thousands of passengers have chosen our first-class style of touring, enjoying a great value, security, and a stress-free environment, all while making new friendships along the way. We know our tour directors enjoy getting to know you while you're on board and love to see your familiar faces when you tour with us again. And speaking about this, I'm going to launch a poll right now. And how many watching this evening have traveled with Westworld tours before? So bear with me one moment and I'll get that loaded up here. There we go. So if you have traveled with us, let us know. And if not, we hope you'll join us on board soon. So far, let's see, we have 80% of our viewers right now have traveled with us before, so that's great. Thank you for joining us. And 20% have not traveled with us yet. So we hope you'll join us one day soon on board and we get a chance to meet you and say hello. So we're here to talk about our Victoria in the spring and fall tours. The spring tour departs April 22nd until May 4th, and our fall tour will leave September 27th and return October 9th. So two of the most spectacular seasons to be out on the West Coast and experience all the flora and fauna that Victoria and surrounding area has to offer. Of course, Victoria features a majestic is set in a majestic coastal setting amidst a landscape of foliage and floral splendor. Gosh, I think I have marbles in my mouth tonight. We'll visit the Inner Harbor, one of the most magnificent harbors in the world, with its quaint shops and unique restaurants. We'll enjoy Butchart Gardens with its wondrous beauty, with over 900 bedding plants and varieties on 55 acres of professionally sculpted grounds. It's absolutely spectacular. We'll experience a tropical jungle up close at Victoria Butterfly Gardens, where you'll see the dart frogs, the tortoises, iguanas, birds, fish, and of course butterflies, which are very friendly. And I know when I was there, I had them landing on my collar, on my shirt, and on your arm. And of course, they've got parrots that like to visit you as well. It really is a fun experience. And Debbie will share more about that as we get into the presentation. And we'll also go up to Chemainus as well and get to see all the murals and spend some time there as well. So at this point, I am very pleased to introduce everybody to our tour director, Debbie McRae. And Debbie will be happy to guide you through the tour this evening. So welcome, Debbie, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. I'd like to welcome everybody here this evening. I know it's cold outside, and I really appreciate that you've taken this time out of your busy schedules to sit here with us tonight and see a little bit of one of my favorite tours. I know my friend Coral will endorse that as well. She typically does this tour as well as I, and we do it in the spring and in the fall. I think one of the reasons it's one of my most favorite tours is because it was the very first tour that I did as a passenger, and I was fortunate enough to do it with my mom over a Mother's Day weekend and week, and we got to spend time in Victoria. It left an indelible impression on me because it was a breath of fresh spring air during a time when it was really cold and snowy, and winter was still fully enveloped in the prairies. And we found it quick and affordable and easy to get out of the prairies and onto the island and spend some time together as mother and daughter. And I've never forgotten that experience. And it is one of the best memories that I have of Victoria. And of course, I think Victoria is the ultimate getaway package. It's got mountains and seascapes and sunshine and blue skies and warm evenings. You can see the Parliament buildings with their lights behind me. That was taken on a warm spring evening. You can enjoy flowers and beaches, old growth forests, and just about any color of flower you can imagine. It's got a full-blown history, Canadian history, because of course, this was one of the focal points of the Hudson's Bay Company in the West. And it's all packaged up into one excursion. Of course, Westworld offers professional guides and drivers. It's really a seamless, stress-free travel experience. And I can attest that we have every guide certified for CPR and first aid. We have AEDs on board. We have professional drivers. You can drive, have your cup of coffee. We stop every 2.5 hours to give you a rest and let you stretch your legs. There's a bathroom on board. We have music. We have videos. We have just about everything that you could ask for on board our luxury coaches. And it really is a luxury experience. So I can attest to that both as a passenger and as a guide. And I truly value what Westworld has to offer. I think one of the best things that it fosters is the friendship. People come on board and they meet people and they nurture those friendships over the years, and they often travel together after that. And I've even had a Victoria tour that nurtured romance. A couple of folks met on one of my Victoria single tours, and the sparks ignited, and they ended up getting engaged and ultimately married. And they return every year to Westworld to explore the passion that travel has to offer. So they like to revisit that experience. I can honestly say we mean it when we say, sit back, relax, and leave the driving to us. So if you can turn to the next slide, please. You can see the route that we're going to take here. We're leaving from the city of Regina and its outlying areas, and we travel up the Louis Riel Trail to Saskatoon, and then along Highway 7 and 9, along the Great Palliser Expedition Survey Plat, and we follow that all the way to the Pacific Ocean. But as we go westward, we're going to spend our first night in Calgary. And Calgary, of course, is the home of the 1988 Olympics and the Calgary Stampede Experience, the greatest outdoor show on earth. When we travel, we stop the first night in Calgary, and the following day we're going to visit Banff National Park. We get to spend the morning on the town site. And of course, Banff is the granddaddy of the national park system in Canada. So it was the very first national park. And we've got some beautiful sights to see. You'll see them on the next slide when we get there. We go to Bow Falls. But one of the things that I love is the transition from the prairies through the mountains, from the wintry snow and the mountains and the snowfall. And then we come across the other side into Golden and onto Revelstoke, and we start to see the first signs of spring. We see the water running, we see Revelstoke in all its glory, and we get to experience some of the history of that great Palliser expedition. We travel through the Kicking Horse Pass. There's lots of history there. Even the name Kicking Horse relates to the Palliser expedition. So as we go through and on to Revelstoke, we will spend our second night in Revelstoke. Now, we take this part of the world for granted because we're from the West, but It is one of the most scenic roadways in the world. And we get to experience it and look out the windows instead of trying to stay on the road and trying to figure out where we're going to park and where we're going to drive and worrying about the weather. We've got professional drivers to do that. So you folks get to look outside the window at all the gorgeous scenery, and it truly is glorious. It's the transition from winter through the mountains to spring that I think you'll find the most appealing for this particular tour. Before we get to Revelstoke, we're actually going to travel through 3 national parks. We're going through Banff National Park, then we go through Yoho National Park, then we go through Glacier National Park, and then we travel on the outskirts of Revelstoke National Park. So it's pretty amazing what we've done with the park system, and that's all a tribute to 3 workers who discovered the hot springs in 1833. And to the Canadian Pacific Railway and William Cornelius Van Horn, who initiated the tourism industry, if you will. So we're going to turn on to the next slide. Our tour highlights are going to take us through Banff National Park. And the day after we arrive, we get the Victoria City tour in the afternoon, and the Malahat Skywalk as we go up the island to Chemainus. And then while we're in Chemainus, we're going to visit the brewing tasting and have our lunch there. And we're also going to see the Murals of Chemainus, which are displayed on the beer cans of Riot Brewing. We are going to travel up island to Nanaimo and then to Cathedral Grove. We're going to visit the Butchart Gardens and the adjacent Victoria Butterfly Gardens. And then as we are leaving Victoria, we're heading to Kelowna, where we'll spend 2 nights and have a wine tasting in Kelowna and experience the best that Kelowna has to offer. We'll have a farewell dinner there. And as you can see, we've got 12 nights accommodation, 7 of which are spent at our beautiful little hotel. And your baggage handling is managed. You get 1 bag per person. You get the opportunity to stay in the downtown core of Victoria within 1 block of Victoria's Inner Harbor, and you will have a kitchenette suite. So when we get to Victoria, the first evening, we get there about 8:30 at night. We'll give you an opportunity to do a little tour about the area, and we'll give you just an overview. Maybe stop and get some groceries for your kitchenette so that you don't have to get up the following morning and you can have toast and coffee on your own balcony. Not every room has a balcony, but almost everyone. And we are going to take the ferry across to Schwartz Bay. You can see that there are multiple meals included, a couple of tastings, one of them being beer and one being wine, and our farewell dinner. Next slide, please. Up in the upper left-hand corner is the beautiful Bow River, and we are going to travel adjacent to the CPR Railway. And of course, that's a history all its own. I love to talk about the Canadian Pacific Railway and its history because, of course, that is why British Columbia joined the Dominion of Canada, because we were successful in securing the railway. And it's because of that that we're able to travel along this roadway, because basically the roadway and the access was developed for the CPR. On our fall tour, we travel to Three Valley Gap, and that is in the upper right-hand corner on your screen. We stay at Three Valley Gap, which has its own history. And there's a beautiful little museum there and a steak dinner that we enjoy in our fall tour. As we travel through to the Three Valley Gap, of course, I mentioned that we would spend the morning in Banff. So the next picture in the middle on your right-hand side of the screen is the beautiful Banff Springs Hotel that was developed by the CPR and Cornelius Van Horn. His statue actually stands in the middle of the roadway just outside the Banff Springs Hotel. And then underneath that picture is a picture of beautiful Bow Falls, and we go and visit that in the morning when we have our morning in Banff. As we travel through to Revelstoke on our first night, we're greeted by the grizzly bear monuments, which are the picture right underneath the Bow River. And to the left of that is Mount Rundle in Banff. And then you've got the border flags showing here as we approach Yoho National Park on the left-hand side lower corner. Next screen, please. Our travel on the BC ferries takes us into Schwartz Bay in Tawasin, from Tawasin into Vancouver Island. And that's the picture you're seeing in the upper right-hand corner is our ferry arriving at the terminal in Schwartz Bay. Immediately underneath the ferry in the middle picture is a little picture of the Royal Scott Motel. And that hotel is where we are going to be staying. It's very cozy. We love our kitchenettes. We love, love, love the location. And as you can see, the Parliament building is only a half a block to the right. And on the left, about a block and a half, maybe 2 blocks away, in the picture on the left of the hotel is the Empress Hotel, where you can have your high tea. And it is so popular that I always recommend that people make a reservation either as soon as you get to Victoria, or you can even make your reservation before you get to Victoria, so that you make sure you can reserve a table. But you can see the flowers in full bloom even in April in Victoria. Look at the tulips in front of the Parliament buildings on the left. They're just gorgeous. Next slide, please. We have an opportunity to visit the incredible Butchart Gardens. And these Butchart Gardens were developed as a result of the efforts of Jenny Butchart, who created this masterpiece of floralscapes and National Historic Site from an old limestone quarry. She was an artist, and she brought people in from all over the world to share their experience and help design and craft this masterpiece. It's floralscaped with seasonal flowers, and it's an absolute delight. There is nothing you will not enjoy about these gardens, even if you only stand and view them from the top. In the upper left-hand corner, you see the sunken garden, and you can stand at the top and take that picture. It's just gorgeous. In the middle, in the center picture, there's a pathway that takes you through the sunken garden, and you'll see all varied species of flowers. They're seasonally crafted so that the colors match each other, and they're brought out season by season. At Christmas time, there's even a Christmas display. Off to the right in the lower right-hand corner are the restaurants and some of the shops that they have at the Butchart Gardens. And it really is fabulous, especially when you're coming from the cold of the winter prairies into the gardens. It's just a really wonderful juxtaposition of scenes, scenery, colors, and climate. So it's really quite amazing. And then on our next slide, we visit the neighbor, the adjacent butterfly gardens. And these butterfly gardens are very unique. They have a unique insectarium and a leaf cutter display that's really quite amazing. It was designed and crafted such that these leaf cutter ants would travel along a vine, and they're carrying leaves that are often 10 times their own weight. And you can stand and watch these leaf cutter ants go up and down that vine for half an hour and just be totally enthralled in watching ants. I never expected it to be that educational. People are thrilled with it. They find it amazing and interesting. It's one of the kids' favorite venues. But the Butterfly Gardens is not just butterflies. They have a resident macaw, parrots, flamingos. They have dart frogs, iguanas, turtles, koi, you name it. There are surprises around every corner. And it's really unique and people really enjoy it. Next slide, please. As I mentioned before, one of the most amazing things that I love about this tour is the amount of time that you get to explore all the opportunities Victoria has to offer. There is so much to choose from. Whale watching in the bottom right-hand corner is always an option, and people love going whale watching. I've even had people go fishing while they were in Victoria. I mentioned high tea at the Empress. You can see the pickle boats there in the upper right-hand corner. We're only a block and a half from the inner harbor, so you are within walking distance to be able to get on a pickle boat ride. You can take a ride on those boats all the way down the gorge. And if you don't want to have high tea at the Empress, you can go to high tea at one of the other gardens along the way. But the pickle boats are very affordable and they're really fun. And they give their own little tour history when they take you through the gorge. The picture underneath the pickle boat is that of the Fisgard Lighthouse. That's been defending the Pacific coast since the 1800s. And it is adjacent to Fort Rod Hill, which was built in the 1890s as a Royal Marine Artillery, Royal Marine Artillery Defense System for the coast. And it's the home of Canada's Pacific Naval Base. It defended Canada through multiple wars, the First and Second World War, and it is integral to the defense system on the western coast. Underneath the carriage, which I'll get to in a moment, are totems, which were demonstrated and illustrated at the Royal British Columbia Museum, in keeping with Canada's commitment to the First Nations people for truth and reconciliation. Many of these totems were actually returned to their original homes. And some of them still remain because they don't know where the original home was, or because they were gifted to the museum by the First Nations people. But many of these totems were actually returned in efforts for truth and reconciliation. Adjacent to that picture on the left-hand side is the Craig Derrick Castle, which was built by the coal bard Robert Dunsmuir as a gift to his wife. Craig Derrick Castle is about a good half an hour's walk uphill, but you can take it in with a short cab ride from our hotel. Often our hotel will offer a shuttle service, but sometimes they don't include the Craig Derrick because it's about 2 blocks outside the perimeter. So it's a very short cab ride, but it's a very wonderful venue and it's a must-see for all first-time visitors. Then you have the horse and buggies up in the upper left-hand corner. That location is situated only a half a block from our hotel, and you can take one of 2 or 3 carriage company rides. They're very competitive, and they give you their own history of the downtown core. So you have lots of things to choose from. Our hotel is within walking distance of the Miniature World, the Empress Hotel, the James Bay and Red Barn Markets, Emily Carr House. There's an Emily Carr statue with her monkey Woo and her horse right on the corner by the inner harbor as we come in, and right across from Thunderbird Park and the Royal BC Museum and the IMAX Theatre. And you see it when we pull around the corner. So it's a really central location. You hear people say location, 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 and ours is. To the south, we have Holland Point Park, the Shoreline Trail, and to the west, we have Beacon Hill Park and the Terry Fox Monument. So there is so much to see. Next slide, please. You can see all the surrounding venues. You can see the Bard and Baron, I think, is downtown there on the left-hand side, one of the pubs. There are restaurants all around. That is the yacht club that you're seeing there in the upper right-hand corner. And of course, we're going to see some of these views when we do our Victoria City tour. You'll be able to decide where you want to go, when you want to go, and how you want to go on your free days on days 5 and 7. Next slide, please. We are going to be going up island to the Malahat. Now, the Malahat Skywalk is a newly developed venue, which was developed in July of 2021. It has an amazing 360-degree view of the Saanich Inlet, as you can see. And it's at a height of 32 meters over and above the summit peak, which already sits at 1,168 feet. So this mountain is really considered to be very sacred to the Malahat people. It's one of the areas where they would utilize the caves and go in and use the caves for spiritual enhancement. So it's very special to the First Nations people. You can see what they've done with some of the craftsmanship, using the foliage and the moss, and they have some amazing artistry along the trail to the Malahat Skywalk. And in the lower right-hand corner, you can see the wooden boardwalk that takes you around the spiral until you get to the top and you get to see that amazing view. Next slide, please. As we head up island to Nanaimo, you can see Nanaimo in the lower middle picture. And Nanaimo has a very striking harbor front. You can actually stand on the boardwalk and see purple and pink starfish from the boardwalk. You can have a coffee and pastries, maybe at their famous Nanaimo bars, while you are taking in that incredible view. And the weather's generally very conducive to outdoor walking and just having a coffee outdoor and breathing in the oceanic air. Then we stop for lunch at Goats on the Roof. We don't always have goats on the roof, but in the fall we tend to. And in the spring, they're usually in a little hut adjacent. That is such an amazing market. You can get lost in there. So we always encourage people to go in, get your lunch, hurry up and eat, and then go browse, because if you go browse first, you might not get lunch. So it's pretty amazing. Then we go on to Cathedral Grove, which is an old growth forest with canopies that are as high as 80 feet. And the trees are over 800 years old. When you see that sunlight streaming through the canopy of trees overhead, you can really appreciate where it gets its name, because it's a reverent place. It's absolutely quiet and solemn and overwhelming. And there's a reverence and an etherealness that really lends itself to the name Cathedral Grove. And then when we're coming back, we may get the opportunity either on that day or on the day from Chemainus. If you could just flip back to the slide previous there, you can see in the lower right-hand corner some of the totems of Duncan. So when we're coming from Cathedral Grove, and now you can go to the next slide again, and going upwards to Chemainus, which is where we're headed here, we may get the opportunity to stop in at Duncan and take a walk along the Totem Trail. What you see in this picture, in this slide here, in the upper left-hand mural is a mural of the hermit. And he was a gentleman who was a homeless man. And what he decided to do was he started building trailways and planting flowers and building rock gardens and pathways in the trees of Chemainus. He was known as the Hermit, and they did a mural on him. He unfortunately passed away some time ago because of the elements, but along the way, he got to meet people, and it's quite a unique history, and I shared that on our tour. The murals of Chemainus reflect the history of Chemainus and its logging history, some of the early homesteaders, and the history of Chemainus before the logging industry ceased. When it ceased, the town was on the verge of collapse. And as an effort to try and bring people in and generate some revenue and keep the people in Chemainus, they came up with a brilliant idea to paint murals on the sides of their buildings, to depict their history, and to attract artistic tourism. They were very successful in doing so. And what happened is they inspired cities all over North America to follow a similar path. For example, the city of Philadelphia has 4,400 murals. It has the most in all of North America, but it got its inspiration from Chemainus. And Moose Jaw and High River, Toronto, and Churchill all followed a similar path in drawing tourists into their locale by painting murals and depicting their history. Chemainus started out with 33 murals in 2006, and now it hosts over 60 murals and 10 statues. So you can see it really demonstrated to the world that you can do anything that you want to achieve if you just put your heart and your talent into it. Then we go on to visit Riot Brewing, the Riot Brewery. And the Riot Brewery also is a focal point in Chemainus. We're going to have our lunch there. They're going to give us a demonstration on brewing, and they depict some of the murals on their beer cans. So they carry on the legacy of Chemainus on their product, and we get a chance to participate in their showcase. Next slide, please. Excuse me. Before we depart for this part of the world, we actually get free days in Victoria on days 5 and 7. And you'll get a chance to explore some of those options that we outlined. And then we leave Victoria and come to beautiful Okanagan country and the Okanagan Lake. In the upper left-hand side of the slide, you'll see the Tantalus Vineyards. And we visited that vineyard many times. It's a lovely location. You can see that it looks down on Okanagan Lake, and they do a fabulous job. There's some wonderful wine labels that they have developed, and they give us a really interesting overview of why the vineyard has that name and why they're located where they are and how they got started. So you can see the vineyards in the pictures surrounding the Ogopogo. And of course, the Ogopogo is the, quote, mythical creature of Okanagan Lake that may not be just a myth. There is some scientific information behind to suggest that perhaps it's a real creature. And we share some of that as we go on our tour. We get some time to spend close to the waterfront and along the lake, and we allow you an opportunity to be able to explore a little bit, taste some wine, and share some fellowship at our farewell dinner in Kelowna. We spend 2 nights there before we depart back for Revelstoke. So you have a multitude of things that you can actually experience on this tour. And I'm delighted to have been able to share them with you. Thank you. When we have these tours, we have people who return again and again. As I mentioned, some of them are for birthdays, some of them are for anniversaries, some of them romance, some of them with family members. And I absolutely loved my experience with my mom on Mother's Day. I see that a lot. Last year, we had 4 sisters who came on this tour, and they had a blast. They had the time of their lives. As a matter of fact, we had a lady who went down the Malahat slide in the center for her 80th birthday. And we had those 4 sisters go down the slide screaming all the way to the bottom. And it was absolutely fabulous. But it's a wonderful way to travel with family because you actually get the holiday and the best of the family experience.
Thanks, Debbie. That was awesome. I have to admit that, traveling with Westworld Tours on the motor coach on the road trip, everybody loves a road trip. I know that we do it far differently than I used to do when I was traveling with my family. And my father was driving, and we would drive from Kelowna to Saskatoon all in one day. And it was like up at 3 o'clock in the morning and in the vehicle. And I had to beg to stop for a little break along the route. So we're far different than that for sure. Plenty of stops en route. Everybody can get out and stretch their legs and coffee and enjoy the sights as we travel along the road. So, and everybody gets to enjoy the scenery. Nobody has to worry about the driving. Like you said, everybody can enjoy. So just a quick recap here on the tour itself. Again, our Victoria in the spring departs April 22nd to May 4th. And the fall tour departs September 27th to October 9th. Either tour is a total of 13 days, and they will include 9 meals. Of course, having that kitchenette right in Victoria is awesome because, like you said, you can enjoy your own breakfast in the morning on your own balcony, and you don't have to go anywhere, which is a bonus for sure. So we will take a minute here and get into your questions at this time. Debbie will stay with us, and so let's just have a look here and see what we have for some questions, Debbie.
One of the things that I just wanted to mention very briefly is I found it very interesting and very coincidental that yesterday, as I was preparing for this presentation, I picked up a book. I see if I can get it to scan here. A book about Robert Service. And Robert Service was actually the bard in the Bard and Banker pub. He used to work in Victoria as a banking clerk. But I picked up this book yesterday for the first time. I've had it in my possession for a couple of years. And as I started reading, it said the January 16th, which was yesterday, 150 years ago, in 1874, which would be Robert Service's 150th birthday yesterday. Robert Service was born in Scotland, and I found it very coincidental that as we're about to embark on this Victoria tour presentation, that should be the date that I should pick up his book. So I thought that was a good sign.
So that's a very interesting story. And yeah, very interesting that you would actually pick that up on his 150th birthday. That's pretty amazing, actually. We do have one question here, and it was about the murals in Chemainus. And Debbie, maybe you'll have the answer to this. Are the murals all painted murals, or are some of them mosaic, or both?
They are mostly painted murals. Okay. They are not normally mosaics.
Okay, good to know. Thank you. And we have a comment here from one of our past passengers, Valinda, who said Victoria was one of her favorite tours. She said that she is done with Westworld. She went in the spring and she would love to go in the fall. And she's saying, thank you, ladies. Well, Valinda, thank you for joining us and sharing those kind words. And hopefully you can join us in the fall. We'd love to have you back again.
And I remember Valinda, so thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. And it looks like that is, oh, we have another guest asking if there's any otters to be seen in Victoria.
There are otters, and I want to share this story because I took my group down to the Fisgard Lighthouse. And as we were walking along the pathway from Fort Rod Hill to the lighthouse down by the water, there was an otter that was it was greater than a yard long. And I think it was probably male because it was very large. I actually have a picture of it in the water. And it came onto the walkway and started chattering at us to tell us to get off the walkway. And that otter was quite assertive. It eventually went back in the water. It was a little intimidating, I have to say, but we got a picture of it in the water. And yes, there are definitely otters there at the Fisgard and at the Inner Harbor. And that particular one went back out into the water, and there was a little smaller version of itself with 2 pups. So yes, there are otters.
Oh, that's awesome. They're amazing little creatures. Well, I guess maybe not so little after all. But
this one was about 3 feet long.
Yeah, they are adorable, that's for sure. Especially those babies. So I think that is it for our questions this evening. So obviously, Debbie, you did a fabulous job. You've answered everybody's questions as we went along, which is great. And we thank you again for sharing your love of Victoria with all of us this evening. And to everybody else that has joined us this evening, we thank you again for joining us and sharing your evening with us. Hopefully you'll join us as we move forward into our future presentations. And we will be following up with you with an email. We'll have links to all the information for both tours. And you can always find out more information on these tours or any of our tours by visiting our website at westworldtours.com or following us on Facebook. Facebook is a great place to follow us. We post pictures on there while we're on tour, so you get to see all the lovely places and our passengers enjoying their vacations. You can also contact your local travel agent. They're more than happy to answer your questions, or you can just click email to inquiries@westworldtours.com. So again, thank you, everybody, and thank you again, Debbie. Stay warm, everybody, and hopefully we'll see some of you in Victoria this spring.